The bridge of the research vessel Harmony's light trembled as another shockwave rippled through its crystalline hull. Captain Zephyr97 pressed her delicate, translucent fingers against the bioneural interface, feeling the ship's pain echo through her consciousness. The Valkyrie were a peaceful species, their entire civilization built around harmony with nature and the gentle pursuit of knowledge. Violence was as foreign to them as breathing underwater. Captain, first researcher Melody32's voice carried the musical tones typical of their species, but fear made it discordant. The pirates are closing fast. Their weapons are unlike anything in our databases. They're tearing through our shields like they're made of flower petals. Through the viewport, Zephyr could see the 3 predator ships approaching. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and brutal efficiency. Scorch marks covered their hulls, and weapon ports bristled along their sides like the spines of some horrible creature. The Grikari Corsairs had been terrorizing this sector for months, but no one had expected them to venture this deep into peaceful space. How long until they're in boarding range? Zephyr asked, though she already knew the answer would bring no comfort. 17 minutes, Captain. Maybe less. Melody's bioluminescent patches flickered with anxiety. They're demanding we surrender our research data and submit to harvesting. The word sent a chill through the bridge crew. Everyone knew what the Grikari did to captured scientists. Their brutal experiments were legendary throughout the galaxy. The Valkyrie's advanced biotechnology made them particularly valuable targets. Send out a general distress call, Zephyr ordered. All frequencies, all languages. Someone must be listening. Captain, the nearest galactic peacekeeping force is 3 days away. The closest Valkyrie defense fleet is even farther. No one can reach us in time. The communications officer's voice was barely a whisper. Zephyr closed her eyes and felt the ship's life force flowing around her. The Harmony's light wasn't just a vessel. It was a living entity, grown rather than built. Its corridors pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and its systems responded to thought as much as touch. Losing it would be like watching a friend die. Another impact rocked the ship. The pirates were testing their weapons now, playing with their prey. Zephyr had read the reports. The Grikari enjoyed causing fear before they struck. It made their victims more compliant. Message sent, Captain, the communications officer reported. Broadcasting on all emergency channels. Good. Now prepare the research cores for emergency purge. We won't let them have our discoveries. Zephyr's decision carried the weight of years of research. Her team had been studying ancient ruins on the edge of the galaxy, uncovering technologies that could revolutionize peaceful applications of energy. In the wrong hands, those same discoveries could become weapons of unimaginable destruction. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of biosystems and the distant rumble of approaching engines. Through their neural links, the crew could feel each other's emotions. Fear mixed with determination, sadness blended with pride. They would face their fate together, as their people always had. Captain, the communications officer suddenly straightened, her patches flaring bright blue with excitement. We're receiving a response to our distress call. Peacekeepers, Zephyr asked hopefully. No, Captain. The signature is unknown. The message is simple. Distress call received. Maintain position. Help is coming. What species? What language? That's the strange part, Captain. It came in perfect Valkyrie, but the linguistic patterns are unlike anything in our databases. And, Captain, the signal strength suggests they're very close. Much closer than should be possible. Zephyr frowned. Space in this region was well mapped. There were no inhabited systems within light years. Run a full sensor sweep. Find out who's out there. Already trying, Captain, but there's interference. Almost like someone's jamming our sensors, but not quite. It's more like reality itself is being bent somehow. The pirate ships were now close enough to see with the naked eye. Their hulls were scarred and pitted, painted with symbols that hurt to look at. Weapon ports glowed with malevolent energy, and Zephyr could make out smaller fighter craft launching from their bays. 10 minutes to boarding range, Melody reported quietly. Keep trying to locate our mysterious rescuers, Zephyr ordered, and prepare the crew for her words were cut off as space itself seemed to tear open near the pirates. It wasn't a hyperspace jump or any kind of portal technology she recognized. It was as if someone had simply decided that a section of empty space should now contain something else. What emerged defied immediate comprehension. The ship that materialized from the impossible tear in space was unlike anything in any galactic database. Where most vessels followed elegant curves or efficient geometric patterns, this one looked like it had been forged in the heart of a star and beaten into shape by titans. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light, covered in angular plates that gave it an almost organic, predatory appearance. But it wasn't alone. More tiers opened, and more ships poured through. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Each one was different in design, but all shared that same brutal aesthetic. Some were massive dreadnoughts, bristling with weapon systems that looked like they could crack moons. Others were sleek destroyers that moved with the fluid grace of hunting sharks. Fighter craft swarmed between the larger vessels like angry insects, their engines leaving trails of fire in the vacuum. Captain Zephyr97 watched in stunned silence as what could only be described as an armada positioned itself between the Harmony's light and the Grakari pirates. The largest ship, a monstrous thing that dwarfed even the biggest galactic peacekeeping dreadnoughts, slowly turned until its bow faced the pirates. "Captain," Melody whispered, "I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything I've ever seen. These ships, they're powered by controlled antimatter reactions. Some of them are running fusion plants that should be impossible to contain. And the weapons." She paused, her bioluminescent patches flickering rapidly as she processed the data. "Captain, some of those weapon signatures are reading as planet killers." On the main view screen, the pirate ships had stopped their advance. Even through the static, Zephyr could see them frantically changing course, trying to flee. But the mysterious armada was already moving to surround them. Unknown vessels. A new voice crackled over the communication system. It spoke perfect Valkyrie, but there was something rough about it. Something that spoke of worlds with harsh gravity and unforgiving environments. "This is Admiral Sarachun of the Terran Defense Force. You have threatened a peaceful research vessel. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." "Terran." Melody looked confused. "I've never heard of that species." The lead pirate ship responded with typical Grakari arrogance. "Unknown primitive vessels, you have entered Grakari hunting grounds. Withdraw or be destroyed. We claim this prey by right of strength." There was a moment of silence that seemed to stretch forever. Then Admiral Chen's voice returned, and there was something in it that made Zephyr's skin crawl. It was the sound of barely controlled violence. "By right of strength?" The human's laugh was like breaking glass. "You want to talk about strength? Let me show you what real strength looks like." The largest Terran ship fired a single shot. It wasn't the elegant beam weapons the Valkyrie used, or even the crude plasma cannons favored by the Grakari. It was a projectile of some kind, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. It struck the lead pirate vessel dead center. The ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field. One moment it was there, threatening and brutal, and the next there was only empty space and rapidly dissipating atoms. "Holy ancestors," breathed the Valkyrie communications officer. "What kind of weapon was that?" "Relativistic kinetic kill vehicle." Admiral Chen's voice was calm, matter of fact. "Depleted uranium penetrator accelerated to 15% light speed. Physics does the rest. Now, as I was saying, stand down immediately." The remaining pirate ships opened fire on the Terran fleet. Plasma beams and particle cannons lanced out, weapons that could carve through most known armor like hot knives through butter. They struck the human ships and did nothing. The beams splashed harmlessly against shields that didn't even seem to notice the assault. "Our turn," Admiral Chun said simply. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Terran ships moved with impossible precision, their weapons reaching out across vast distances to touch the pirate vessels with casual, terrible efficiency. Some pirates were hit by more kinetic weapons that turned them into expanding clouds of plasma. Others simply vanished as exotic energy weapons deleted them from existence. A few tried to surrender, but the humans seemed uninterested in prisoners. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Grakari raiding fleet was gone. The space where they had been was empty except for a few glowing particles and the rapidly fading heat signatures of vaporized metal. Medical vessel harmonies light. Admiral Chen's voice had returned to its earlier, more professional tone. "This is Admiral Chen. Are there any casualties aboard your vessel?" Captain Zephyr found her voice after several attempts. No casualties. Admiral Chen, I don't know how to thank you, but I must ask, what species are you? I've never heard of Terrans before. We're human, came the reply. As for thanks, none are necessary. Someone sent out a distress call. We answered. That's what decent people do. But your weapons, your technology, how is it possible? There was a pause, and when Admiral Chun spoke again, her voice carried a weight of experience that spoke of countless battles fought and won. Let me put it this way, Captain. In our part of the galaxy, if you're not strong enough to protect yourself and others, you don't survive long enough to learn better. We learn to be very, very good at protecting things. Could we meet? Officially? Our governments should establish contact. Already arranged, Captain. We're transmitting the coordinates for a neutral meeting point. Bring your scientists and diplomats. But I should warn you, the human's voice carried a note of amusement now. We're probably not what you're expecting. The neutral meeting point was a small space station orbiting a dead moon in an uninhabited system. The Galactic Council had provided the location, though their representatives seemed nervous about the whole affair. Word of the mysterious Terrans and their devastating military capability had spread quickly through diplomatic channels. Captain Zephyr 97 stood in the station's main conference room, surrounded by representatives from a dozen species. The Velcari delegation included their finest xenobiologists and cultural specialists. The elegant Silurians had sent philosophers and poets. The methodical Zentorians brought mathematicians and engineers. Even the normally reclusive Kythera had dispatched observers. Everyone wanted to understand these new arrivals who had casually obliterated an entire pirate fleet. Contact established, announced the station's AI in its perfectly neutral tone. Terran delegation requesting permission to dock. Permission granted, replied Ambassador Harmony of Spheres, the senior Velcari diplomat. Her bioluminescent patches flickered with nervous energy. Route them to docking base 7. Through the observation windows, they watched the human ship approach. It was smaller than the warships they had seen, but still carried that same brutal aesthetic. Where other species favored flowing lines or mathematical precision, the humans seemed to prefer angles that suggested barely controlled violence. Remarkable, murmured Dr. Zen 14, the Zentorian physicist. His mechanical voice carried undertones of fascination. Their ship's energy signature suggests a power output that should require a fusion plant 3 times that size. How are they achieving such efficiency? Perhaps we'll have our answers soon, Ambassador Harmony replied, though her voice carried doubt. The readings they'd taken during the battle had raised more questions than they'd answered. The human weapons operated on principles that seemed to violate several established laws of physics. The airlocks cycled, and the human delegation entered the conference room. The assembled aliens fell silent. Humans, it turned out, were terrifying. They stood nearly twice the height of most species, with broad shoulders and thick limbs that spoke of evolution under crushing gravity. Their skin was a variety of colors, from pale pink to deep brown, stretched over frames that looked like they could bend steel bars. But it was their eyes that truly unsettled the gathered diplomats. They were forward-facing predators' eyes, designed for tracking prey, and they moved constantly, cataloging threats and exits with unconscious efficiency. The lead human stepped forward. She was tall even by human standards, with graying hair pulled back in a severe style and scars visible on her hands and neck. Her uniform was crisp and military, bearing insignia that suggested high rank. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun," she said, her voice carrying easily through the room. "This is Dr. Marcus Webb, our head of xenobiology, and Commander Lisa Torres, our diplomatic liaison." Dr. Webb was shorter and broader, with kind eyes behind protective lenses. Commander Torres was lean and moved like a predator, her hand never far from what was clearly a weapon at her hip. "Welcome," Ambassador Harmony managed, her voice barely steady. "We are honored by your presence. Please take your seats so we can begin formal introductions." The humans sat, but even relaxed, they radiated an aura of controlled lethality. Admiral Chin folded her hands on the table and smiled, an expression that showed far too many teeth. "Before we begin," she said pleasantly, "I should probably explain a few things about humanity. It might help put the rest of our conversation in context." "Please," urged Dr. Zan 14. "We are most curious about your species development." Dr. Webb cleared his throat and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table, showing a blue-green world with a single large moon. "This is Earth, our home world," he began. "Class M planet, oxygen atmosphere, approximately 1 standard gravity. The first thing you should understand is that Earth tried very hard to kill us." The images shifted, showing massive storms, volcanic eruptions, and ice ages that covered entire continents. Our planet went through multiple extinction events: asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages that lasted millions of years. Life on Earth learned early that the universe was hostile and unforgiving. Only the strongest, smartest, and most adaptable survived. "How terrible," whispered a Silurian philosopher. "No wonder your people seemed so intense." "Oh, that's just the beginning," Dr. Webb said cheerfully. "See, Earth didn't just try to kill us with natural disasters. It populated the planet with creatures specifically designed to hunt and eat each other." New images appeared. The assembled aliens recoiled in horror at the sight of massive predators with teeth like knives, venomous creatures that could kill with a single bite, and parasites that seemed designed by a malevolent intelligence. "We evolved alongside saber-toothed cats, cave bears, and giant wolves," Admiral Chun added conversationally. "Our ancestors had to outthink creatures that could tear them apart with their bare claws. We learned to make tools, to work together, to turn the environment itself into a weapon." "But surely," protested Ambassador Harmony, "once you achieved civilization, the violence ended?" The humans exchanged glances, and Commander Torres laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Not exactly," she said. "See, the thing about being the galaxy's premier persistence hunters is that the trait doesn't just disappear when you invent agriculture. We kept hunting. We just started hunting each other." The holographic display shifted to show human history. Wars raged across continents, empires rose and fell, and technological advancements seemed to go hand in hand with increasingly sophisticated methods of destruction. "We've been at war with something for our entire recorded history," Admiral Chin explained. "Climate, animals, disease, each other, the laws of physics themselves. We've never known a generation that didn't have to fight for survival." Dr. Zen 14's mechanical voice carried a note of disbelief. "But how did you achieve space travel? How did you develop your technology?" Dr. Webb grinned, and the expression was somehow more unsettling than Admiral Chin's predatory smile. "We weaponized everything. Atomic power? We figured out how to make bombs before power plants. Rocketry? Developed to deliver those bombs across continents. Computers? Built to calculate missile trajectories. Satellites? Military communication and surveillance. Even our peaceful achievements," Admiral Chin added, "tend to have military applications. Medical technology keeps soldiers alive longer. Agricultural advances feed bigger armies." Every invention is measured by how it might help us kill our enemies more efficiently. The conference room had gone very quiet. Several species were unconsciously edging away from the human delegation. "You must think us monsters," Commander Torres said softly. "But here's the thing you need to understand. All that violence, all that aggression, all those survival instincts honed over millions of years, they're not just directed at our enemy's commander." Torres leaned forward, her intense gaze sweeping across the assembled aliens. "Every human instinct that makes us dangerous to our enemies also makes us protective of those we consider allies. We're pack hunters, you see. We bond with our pack, and we'll die before we let harm come to those under our protection." Dr. Webb nodded enthusiastically. "It's quite fascinating from a psychological standpoint. Humans have an almost pathological need to protect what they consider innocent. It's hardwired into our neural structure. Show a human someone being bullied, and our stress hormones spike. Our heart rate increases. Our muscles tense for action. We literally cannot ignore suffering if we're capable of stopping it." "But surely," interjected a Kithera observer, their crystalline form chiming softly, "this protective instinct must be limited to your own kind." Admiral Chin's smile returned, but this time it carried warmth instead of menace. "Actually, no. See, humans have this annoying habit of adopting anything we find cute, helpless, or simply interesting. We've domesticated dozens of species on our planet, not for food or labor, but just because we liked having them around." The holographic display shifted to show humans interacting with various Earth animals. Families playing with domestic dogs that had evolved from wolves. Children caring for cats that purr when content. Humans swimming alongside marine mammals, protecting them from predators. "We have wildlife preserves covering millions of acres," Dr. Webb explained. "We brought species back from the edge of extinction just because we didn't want to see them disappear. We've spent enormous resources protecting creatures that serve no practical purpose beyond existing. And that's just on our own planet," Commander Torres added. "When we reached space and discovered we weren't alone, that protective instinct went into overdrive. Every species we've encountered has triggered our must-protect response in some way." Ambassador Harmony's bioluminescent patches had begun to glow with what the humans were learning to recognize as curiosity rather than fear. "Are you saying you came to help us simply because we asked?" "More than that," Admiral Chen said. "You sent out a distress call. In human psychology, there are few things more sacred than responding to someone asking for help. It's built into our cultural DNA. When someone calls for aid, humans answer. Period. But the force you deployed," Dr. Zen, 14, protested. "Thousands of ships. The firepower to sterilize planets. Surely that was excessive for 3 pirate vessels." The humans exchanged glances again, and Dr. Webb coughed uncomfortably. "Well," he said slowly, "here's the thing about human psychology. We don't really do measured responses very well. When something threatens our pack, we tend to overreact. Overreact." The word came out as a squeak from the Velcari ambassador. Commander Torres shrugged apologetically. "Your distress call was broadcast on emergency frequencies. Every human military unit within 50 light years received it. And, well, we were all in the area conducting training exercises." "Training exercises?" The Silurian philosopher's melodic voice carried a note of dread. "The 7th, 12th, and 23rd Fleets were running war games," Admiral Chun explained matter-of-factly. "When we heard someone was threatening a peaceful research vessel, all 3 fleets immediately responded. We didn't really stop to think about whether 30,000 warships might be overkill for 3 pirate vessels." Silence fell over the conference room like a heavy blanket. The assembled aliens stared at the humans in a mixture of awe and terror. 30,000? Ambassador Harmony whispered. "Well, that's just the ships that responded immediately," Dr. Webb said helpfully. "Once word spreads that there are pirates operating in this sector, we'll probably see another 100,000 vessels show up. Humans really don't like pirates." "Or slavers," Commander Torres added. or anyone who threatens peaceful species, really. It brings out the worst in us. Or the best, Admiral Chun corrected gently. Depending on your perspective, the Kythera observer's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid calculations. Your species maintains a military force of over 100,000 starships. Oh, much more than that, Dr. Webb said cheerfully. Those are just the ones in this galactic arm. Humanity has been expanding for nearly 1,000 years. We have colonies in 17 different galaxies now, each with their own defense fleets. Every human settlement maintains sufficient military force to protect itself and render aid to others, Admiral Chen explained. It's not paranoia when the universe actually is trying to kill you. We learned that lesson early. Ambassador Harmony found her voice again. Admiral Chun, may I ask a personal question? When you received our distress call, what was your first thought? The human admiral considered the question seriously. My first thought was that someone was afraid and needed help. My second thought was wondering how fast we could get there. My third thought was making sure we brought enough firepower to solve the problem permanently. She paused, then smiled that toothy predator's grin again. I never once considered not responding. And your crew? Your fellow humans? They had the same reaction. In fact, I had to stop several ship captains from arriving early and engaging the pirates alone. Humans have a hard time with patience when innocent people are in danger. Dr. Zen 14's mechanical voice carried a note of fascination. Your species weaponizes compassion. In a way, yes, Dr. Webb agreed. Our empathy is backed by overwhelming force. We feel the need to help, and we have the capability to make that help stick. Commander Torres leaned back in her chair. The thing is, we're not unique in caring about others. Most species have some form of empathy, some desire to help those in need. What makes humans different is that we've turned that caring into a military doctrine. We've made compassion into a strategic weapon, Admiral Chen added. When humans say we've got your back, we mean it literally. We will move fleets, spend fortunes, and risk our lives to protect strangers we've never met, just because it's the right thing to do. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Finally, Ambassador Harmony spoke. Admiral Chun, I believe I speak for all assembled species when I say we would be honored to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. But I must ask, what do you want from us in return? Admiral Chen's expression softened, and for the first time since entering the conference room, she looked less like a predator and more like someone who had spent too many years carrying the weight of responsibility. What do we want? She repeated thoughtfully. That's actually a complicated question. You see, humans have discovered something interesting about our psychology. The more we protect, the more we need to protect. It becomes a compulsion. Dr. Webb nodded vigorously. It's quite fascinating, really. Studies show that humans who rescue animals are more likely to rescue more animals. Soldiers who save civilians become more protective of civilian populations. The behavior reinforces itself. What Dr. Webb is trying to say, Commander Torres interjected with a wry smile, is that we're addicted to being the galaxy's protectors. We can't stop ourselves from helping, even when it would be smarter to mind our own business. The assembled aliens looked confused, and Ambassador Harmony voiced their collective thought. But surely that a good thing? A species willing to help others. It would be, Admiral Chen said quietly, if we were better at knowing when to stop. The problem with humans is that we don't really have an off switch when it comes to protecting people. We escalate. We overcompensate. We turn simple peacekeeping missions into decade-long occupations because we can't stand the thought of leaving a job half-finished. She activated her own holographic display, showing star maps marked with various symbols. In the past century, humans have intervened in 47 different conflicts. We've liberated 18 slave species, destroyed 12 pirate empires, and overthrown 6 genocidal governments. But we've also ended up becoming the de facto protectors of all those systems we've helped. We can't leave, Dr. Webb explained. Every time we try to withdraw our forces and let a species handle their own defense, something goes wrong. Pirates return, old enemies resurface, or or new threats emerge. So we stay. We build bases. We establish patrol routes. We become responsible for everyone's safety. The Kythera observer's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations. You've created a protection network spanning multiple galaxies. More or less, Commander Torres confirmed. And it keeps growing. Every species we help becomes part of the network. Every threat we eliminate reveals 2 more. Every system we protect borders 3 more that need protection. Which brings us to what we want from you, Admiral Chin said, her voice carrying a note of something that might have been hope. We want partners. The word hung in the air like a question. Partners? Ambassador Harmony asked. Humans are very good at violence, Dr. Webb said matter-of-factly. We're excellent at building weapons, training soldiers, and blowing things up. But we're not so good at the things that come after. Rebuilding societies, establishing peaceful governments, creating lasting diplomatic solutions. We tend to solve problems by hitting them very hard until they stop moving. Admiral Chen leaned forward. But you're good at those things. The Valkyrie understand harmony and biological systems. The Silurians create art and beauty that heals souls. The Zentorians build technologies that improve lives rather than ending them. The Kythera understand mathematics and logic in ways that can solve problems we never even notice. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Commander Torres said firmly. We've tried that on a smaller scale, and humans make terrible administrators. We're too impatient, too prone to solving complex problems with simple violence. What we want is to be the sword that protects while others handle the actual governing. The implications began to dawn on the assembled aliens. Ambassador Harmony's bioluminescent patches flickered rapidly as she processed the offer. You're proposing an alliance, she said slowly. Your military protection in exchange for our expertise in governance, diplomacy, and reconstruction. Exactly, Admiral Chen said. Humans provide the security. You provide the wisdom. Together, we might actually be able to build something lasting instead of just breaking things that threaten the peace. Dr. Zen 14's mechanical voice carried a note of skepticism. But what guarantees do we have? How do we know you won't simply become the very tyrants you protect us from? Admiral Chin's smile returned, but this time it carried sadness rather than humor. Because humans have a fatal flaw that makes tyranny almost impossible for us to sustain. We can't stop caring about individuals. Show us a single person being oppressed by our own system, and we'll tear that system down and rebuild it. It's true, Dr. Webb added. Human history is full of humans overthrowing human governments because they weren't treating people fairly. We're constitutionally incapable of ignoring injustice, even when it would be convenient. Plus, Commander Torres said with a grin, we're really bad at sitting still. Most human military leaders get bored with occupation duty and start looking for new threats to deal with. We'd rather be out there fighting monsters than sitting behind desks, pushing paperwork. The conference room fell into contemplative silence. Finally, the Silurian philosopher spoke, her musical voice carrying overtones of wonder. You're offering to be our guardians, our protectors, but you want nothing more than the chance to continue protecting. That's about the size of it, Admiral Chen confirmed. Humans need to feel useful. We need to feel like we're making a difference. Give us threats to fight and people to protect, and we're happy. Try to make us sit still and administrate, and we get restless. Restless humans are dangerous humans, Dr. Webb added helpfully. We start looking for problems to solve, and human solutions to problems tend to be very permanent. Ambassador Harmony stood slowly, her decision made. Admiral Chun, I believe I can speak for the Valkyrie when I say we would be honored to enter into such an alliance. Our biotechnology and your protection protocols could revolutionize medical care across the galaxy. One by one, the other species representatives voiced their agreement. The Silurians offered their artistic and cultural expertise. The Zentorians volunteered their technological prowess. Even the reserved Kythera agreed to share their mathematical insights. Admiral Chun stood as well, and for the first time since the meeting began, she looked completely relaxed. In that case, she said, "Welcome to the Terran Protection Network. Just remember, once you're under human protection, you're family. And humans take care of family." As the various species began discussing the practical details of their new alliance, Captain Zephyr97 watched from the observation deck. Her simple distress call had started something that would reshape the galaxy. She thought about the gentle research vessel that had been saved by overwhelming force, and about the terrifying, compassionate species that had made themselves guardians of the stars. Somehow, she thought, the universe had just become a much safer place for everyone except those who threatened the innocent. And perhaps that was exactly as it should be.